I will start binging. I'll start eating everything I see. I don't trust myself. So, number one fear when it comes to intuitive eating is that I or you, or anyone else will lose control. And a lot of people are scared to start because it makes sense, right? When I started intuitive eating, it made total sense. I'm reading stuff online and they say you can eat everything you want. And I'm like, doesn't make sense. I will eat only burgers, only heavy food, only junk food, only sugar. I'll eat tons of cake if you let me eat anything I want. Like, it doesn't make any sense. So I was scared to start. I was hesitant. I was like, I don't trust myself. I will eat everything I see. So, what do you do, right? What do you do in this situation? So, when I talk about intuitive eating and when I talk about control, it's so interesting because the phrase that comes to my mind, you lose control to gain control. And like, right? Doesn't make any sense. Like, you need to lose control in order to gain control. But it makes total and complete sense to me because when you're controlling, when you're in diet mentality, where you control, okay, I cannot eat this is a bad food, this is a food I'm not allowed to eat, all your brain thinks about and what all my brain is used to think about is that particular food that you can have. And let's say I'm on a diet and I'm not supposed to eat burgers and cakes. And I love sugar. I love cakes. And if you tell me I'm not supposed to eat cakes, guess what I'm dreaming about every night? About cakes and about burgers, right? So if you put yourself in the diet mentality and you're constantly restricting yourself and you're saying, okay, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, you're not supposed to eat this, and it's constantly in your mind and you're controlling yourself, you're controlling your body, you're trying to control your mind, it doesn't work because technically you're reprogramming yourself in order to get the food, because how law of attraction works, right? And I talk in many of my videos where you repeat to yourself, it's repetition and programming your mind. So when you repeat yourself burger, 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 cake, 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 even though you put don't or not to eat, I'm not supposed to, your brain only remembers the positive stuff, which is burger, 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 cake, 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 cake. So once you're off the diet, you eat all the burgers you've been thinking about and you eat all the cakes in the world because finally you can do it, right? So the whole diet mentality doesn't work. And why it doesn't work? Because of restrictions, right? Because you restrict yourself, you said you cannot do it, and what your brain wants to do when you cannot do it, of course, wants to have that particular thing. They've done studies, right, where they tell kids, and you can even see it in the movies. I recently watched a movie where someone told the person, like, don't open that door. Guess what the person did after the other one went out of the door and left the room? They opened that door because they told them don't open it, right? So that's what our mind is focusing about because it thinks it's important. Because when we say don't, it means it's important, and our brain is like, okay, it's important, we gotta do it, it's important, we gotta do it. So it's only concentrating on the stuff that you're not supposed to do and actually reprogramming yourself to it. Doesn't make sense, right? And the same with kids. Like, if you say to a kid, like, you put a candy in front of the kid and say don't eat it, what will kid think about all the time that looking at that candy? They want to eat that candy, right? The same with the burgers, the same with cakes, and the same with little kid inside too. They want that cake, they want that burger, and that's why it doesn't work. Diets don't work because they control too much. Diets control too much, and when we control too much, our brain eventually gives up and starts just binging on the food that we weren't supposed to eat. But when you lose control, you see what I mean now? You lose control and you say, okay, I can eat anything I want. I can eat anything I want in the world. I can eat cakes, I can eat burgers, I can eat anything. And then you start listening to your body, you look at the burger and you're like, do I want the burger? And just remember that you can have this burger anytime you want. There's no restrictions, there's no limitations, right? You can have all the burgers in the world that you want, right? So you ask yourself, do I want the burger in this particular moment? And like, oh, no, not really. I can have it later, right? You can have it anytime you want. You can have it later, you can have it 5 minutes later, you can have it 1 second later, you can have it 5 days later, you can have it 2 months later. It doesn't matter because you can have it anytime you want. And once you can have it anytime you want, that pressure, that restriction, that pressure goes away and your body is like, well, I don't want it right now, maybe later, right? So later you can ask yourself, do I want it? And then you think about it again and you listen to your body and like, I don't want it. So that's how I used to love burgers. And that's how now I eat burgers like once in a few months, because I don't crave it anymore, because it's not a holy grail that is restricted for me, right? That is like, oh, and then you're like, oh, I want burgers all the time. No, it's like, you can have it anytime you want. But right now, in this moment, I don't want it. And why would I eat it? And I can have it anytime you want. If I told myself, okay, there's a burger, I cannot have it. I cannot have it. And right away, your brain is like, okay, we gotta have it, we gotta have it, we gotta have it. Even though your body doesn't want it, your brain is like, it doesn't matter because we cannot have it, we gotta have it. It looks opposite. So you're losing, when you allow yourself to eat what you want, you're losing control. And once you lose control, you actually gain control. You see what I mean? You lose control because you can have it anytime you want and you don't control your diet. But at the same time, you're gaining control of your life, where you actually listen to your body and you know, okay, my body doesn't want it right now. So I have all the control in the world because I listen to my body, and if my body wants it, I'll have it. And if my body doesn't want it, I will not have it. So you have the ultimate control. Like, right? My voice. So that's why the diet doesn't work. I explained you guys already. That's why restrictions don't work, because it just restricts and then creates this pressure, and once there's pressure, you want it. When you just start intuitive eating, there's a transition phase. So basically, our mind, so you know that it creates neural pathways, right? So neural pathways is when we do things the same way all the time, and we keep doing it. It's like a habit, right? So once we create a habit, it starts doing the same way. So our brain doesn't spend as much energy. It just does it automatically because our brain loves automation. It's so easy. You don't spend mental energy, you don't spend anything like working right through it consciously. So super easy, and that's why our brain likes it. But when we change in our diet, when we change in our eating habits, we go through transition phase. So at the beginning, if you just start eating intuitively, you might feel that there's lack of control, that you don't control your body because you don't know what's going on. And you might have, but not everyone. Again, everyone is different, everyone is unique. Right? So you might start craving bad food because your brain is still in that diet mode, right? So when we change something in our life, our brain catches up after some time. So let's say today you woke up and you're like, okay, I'm gonna eat intuitively, and you're doing all the things, you're listening to your body, right? You're doing all the things that you're supposed to do when you eat intuitively, but your brain still lives in the past. Your brain still has old narrow pathways that you were doing when you were living on a diet mentality or a good or bad food mentality, right? So that's where there's disconnect between the past and the future, when you're consciously decided, okay, I'm gonna do this, but your brain is still living in the past, right? Still doing all the same way it was doing it before. So it will take some time for your brain to adjust to the new ritual, to the new habit, to create new neural pathways where you can do it naturally we can do it automatically, right? So it's like a starving animal. Like, let's say it's a starving wolf, right? So it came from the forest and it became a dog. So let's say someone picked up a wolf from a forest so they can have a dog, right? I think that's how the dogs came to our lives, right? I'm not sure, but that's my assumption. Don't do it. Better to adopt a dog, but I'm just saying as an example. So starving wolf, and a person finds it and it takes it and it gives it all the food it can have. And the wolf's natural response, because wolves, they eat sparingly, right? So they catch food, they eat, and then maybe a few days or maybe a few weeks they don't get any food because they can catch more food, right? So they don't eat every day the same like dogs do, right? So the natural response of the wolf will be eating when they get food, right? Because in the wild they used to get food sparingly, the same like on a diet, right? You used to get that certain food sparingly because you're not allowed to eat it. So the wolf in the wild, they get that food sparingly, and that's why the first natural response is to constantly eat every time they get food, because the brain is used to eating every time it gets food because they need food for survival, right? But once it becomes a dog, well, the wolf doesn't need that food anymore. Doesn't need that much food anymore. It doesn't need to eat more than it needs to eat, right? The more that body needs, because every day it gets new food every day. So wolf might become fat because it's overeating because of its old habits. So you will take a wolf, and again, we're making a comparison here. You will take a person sometime, it will take a brain some time to readjust to the new habit. And that's why sometimes at the beginning people see with intuitive eating where they crave all this bad food that they weren't allowed to eat before. And that's the reason, because your brain is used to restrictions, and once restrictions are off, you're like, whoa, finally it's a party, it's a Christmas and Thanksgiving all in one. We can eat our heart out, right? So give yourself the pleasure and allow yourself to do it, because once your brain realizes, okay, we can eat that burgers and cakes and pretty much everything anytime, like, okay, well, it gets adjusted to the new reality where it doesn't need this food anymore, right? Where you start asking yourself these questions and like, do I want this? And most of the time you don't, right? Because maybe you crave something else, or maybe something, sometimes you do want it. So with intuitive eating, there's no limitations, and for your brain, once you come off the diet mentality, it's very tricky and it takes time to readjust to the new reality and catch up and realize that we're not starving, there's no restrictions anymore. We don't have to be, crazy about these foods that were limited before, and right now we can have it anytime we want. The very important thing when it comes to intuitive eating and when we change our habits, right, is to be honest with yourself. Because sometimes, I know that what happens for me, and that's why I do the difference. I create the difference for me, because my eyes, when I see cake, I'm like, oh, I love cakes. Like, give me that. It's like an addiction. It's a mini addiction, which I admit I have. I'm like, I love cakes, right? So they look delicious, and that's how they present to you in the store or in a bakery. They put it in a beautiful plate. They put some syrup on top with whipped cream, and you're like, oh, it's just melting. You're like, I want that cake. But asking your body and listening to your body is completely different story. So when I ask my body and I listen to responses, right, I'm like, no, I don't want any sugar. It's gonna create like a, sugar spike, and then I'm gonna get a crash, and then I'm gonna get tired, and then like all these things are gonna happen in my body that I don't want, and I don't want to be tired today later because I still have a few things to do, and I want to have energy. So once you start being honest with yourself and being honest that yes, your hungry eyes, your wolf eyes, they want that cake, they want that food, right? That looks delicious, and that's why they present it to you in a very delicious way. But once you like really dig deep and ask yourself honest question, like, do I really want it? You're like, no, I don't. And that's where you try to work with yourself and find a way how you can, where you don't go for that cake. And sometimes you don't. Once in a while, if it, like for me, if it's Thanksgiving, I'm like, okay, all limitations off. Even if I don't want it, I'm still gonna eat it because it's delicious. So for me, it's like everything goes wild, and then the next day, of course, I feel heavy and I feel stuffed like a turkey. So turkey was stuffed, and nade stuffed next day. So yes, it creates some, inconsistencies in my body, but a few days in a year, I allow myself, like, okay, I'm eating what I want. So that's how you work out with yourself a certain rules, a certain ways. That's how you try to communicate with yourself, make certain decisions where you agree or disagree, and you make your own rules, right? So it doesn't have to be either or, but listening to your body and adjusting is very important. So I've talked about this, hungry eyes. I talked about dieting. I talked about this fear that you will eat everything that you want, that transition, right? It can be scary, it can be challenging, and I totally understand you. But why I'm talking about intuitive eating all the time, and why I promote it, and why I say, for me, it's life-changing, right? Because the longer you live in the diet mentality, the longer you have those restrictions, the longer you create stress for yourself, the longer you have very unhealthy relationship with food, because diets create this unhealthy relationship with food. So this is very important, and yes, at the beginning it might be challenging, but you're making lifelong changes that, once you do it, once it becomes a habit, once you build this habit, it will stay with you forever. And that's why it's so important to do it, and so important to get used to this new habit, and to go, yes, maybe at the beginning through some challenges, because it's the rest of your life. So before, for me, it was stressful. I used to shame myself because I ate certain foods. I used to feel better about eating, worse, very bad about eating. I cannot talk anymore today. So I used to feel bad about eating certain foods, and it created stress in my life where I couldn't focus on my goals, I couldn't focus on my family, where I was constantly shaming and blaming myself. It was affecting my life. And once I changed it, once I started eating intuitively and trusting my body and listening to my body, it's completely different world. It's before and after. It's like completely different person, right? Like 2.0, as they say right now, right? Your life completely changes. And once it becomes a habit, it stays with you forever. And then your life becomes free. Then you can reach your goals, whatever they are. You can find new passions, whatever they are. You don't have to think about food anymore, because that's not normal to think about food all the time and stress about food all the time. We shouldn't be doing that. That's not natural. Food is just a fuel for our body. It shouldn't be stressful. It shouldn't be something that we shame ourselves about or blame ourselves about, right? So this change, that's why I'm saying that in the beginning, yes, people get scared, people get stressed out. Some people not, some people just, slowly readjust. So everyone is different, but this change is important. And the sooner you start this process, the sooner you start changing your habits, the sooner you will change it for better, and then your life becomes completely awesome and free of all the stress and all the tensions, right, about food and, food perceptions. For some people, it will take longer than others. So for me, as I mentioned probably in a few videos, it took me a few years to change completely and to become an automatic habit and listen to my body and learn to listen to my body. And yes, like for you probably it will be faster if you take like courses, or maybe you will read a few books about it, or maybe you find your own way to listen to your body. Like for different people, different time frames. So you shouldn't be like after a couple of weeks you tried it and maybe you face some challenges and maybe you're confused about something. You shouldn't be giving up on it, because it takes time and takes practice, and it's like a habit. You're changing the habits, but it's a permanent solution that you will use in the future, and you will be living without diets. Like living with diets is stressful. Living in the diet mentality is bad. It's just constantly stress. and you've been living your whole life in that diet mentality. So some people come to intuitive eating, some people come to my programs and they're like, okay, I want to change it right now. I want to see changes like in 1-2 weeks, right? And yes, you will see changes in 1-2 weeks, but at the same time, it will not change completely because it takes time to adjust. You've been in the diet mentality your whole life, or probably half of your life, right? Depending when it started. So, of course, it will take some time to change it again back. And a few weeks or a few months is okay because you've been doing it for many, 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 many years. So, yes, few months is nothing compared to many, many, many years, right? So, that's why it's important to realize that it's not gonna be instant change. It's not gonna be like one and done and then you're like awesome. Even though I teach a certain method where you can start eating intuitively right away without knowing all the information, without knowing the stuff. But if you're doing it yourself, if you're doing it from the beginning, if you're reading a few books, if you're trying to educate yourself, it's a learning journey. It's a process, a journey to getting to know yourself. It's a journey to figure out how to listen to your body, how your body works, what's going on in there. Maybe you never paid attention what's going on in your body, right? It's very exciting. Like for me, it was very exciting. Right now, I know so much more about my body, and like I didn't know my whole life about any of that. I didn't know myself my whole life, and then I finally started discovering. So it's a very exciting journey, and I'm so happy that you're looking into this topic and that you're interested in this topic. And I wish you good luck on your journey because it's very exciting, and once you change your habits, it will change your life completely. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about a very important topic that many people ask me. And this topic is, will I lose weight if I start eating intuitively? And that's a very controversial one because many people expect it and they don't know what to expect and what's going on. So subscribe, hit notification button for the next video so you can, watch the video as soon as it comes out. And also like the video if you like it, share it with people if you feel like they need it, and leave comments in the section below. Leave comments like how you struggled with diets before, and feel free. I know a lot of people feel embarrassed talking about weight issues. A lot of people feel embarrassed talking about tries with daga diets. What's daga? I don't know. It just came out. Struggles with diet, and I was ashamed myself before. I was ashamed to talk about my weight. I was ashamed to talk about my struggles with food. I was ashamed to talk about my food issues, my relationship with food, because I was shaming and blaming myself all the time. I didn't accept my body. I didn't accept that I have certain problems, right? When it comes to diet, mentality, I always thought that that's the way I should be living. That's the way that I should be always constantly stressed and scared about it, and I shouldn't talk about it with other people. But I feel like it's very important for us to share, and that's why I'm sharing right now openly. And some people look at me like, whoa, you're so honest. I'm like, what? Once you accept yourself, once you accept that it's okay to share about your pain, and once you share about your pain, I know so many people help me when they talk about what they went through, what kind of issue they had and how they overcame it. And I'm like, okay, well, this person could do it, and this person went through the struggle and they've done it, and I can do it too. And even if you're still struggling right now, it's still important to share, because other people will see that they're not alone. Other people will see that they're having the same issues and they're sharing it honestly, and then it's just so powerful. Like for me, it's so powerful when I see those stories. And when I saw those stories, when I went through my intuitive eating journey and my diet journey, I was like crying sometimes. I'm like, this person is going through the same thing, and it's so hard, but I know there's end to this. There is a better world out there where I can, when I can eat anything I want, when I don't have to be stressed about food, where I don't have to feel guilty about eating, or feel guilty about my body, or feel shameful of my body. So share it with other people, share it in the comments, share it with your friends, share your personal experiences, and it's okay to share. This is we share openly and we don't judge other people, because it's tough. It's very tough to go through this, and it's very tough to figure it out. And I feel you, I'm with you. I know that you can do it. I know that you can change your life, and you can have a better relationship with food. It shouldn't be stressful. It shouldn't be shame and blame. It shouldn't be any negative emotions about food. You can change it, and I'm with you. And when you guys leave comments, I'm so excited to check this out. And share your story as well. I'm sharing my story here openly. So share yours, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna help other people to see it and to relate and to go through the same journey as you go, and to support each other. So let's support each other in the comments. Let's support each other in the world. Let's be open. Let's be free. And I wish you good luck and the best. And I know you guys can do it. I know. I'm rooting for you. I know you can do it.